MAI's webinar on the topic, Writing for the Younger Generation. This is Ramon Rocha, Director of Publisher Development of Media Associates International. I'm happy to announce that today's webinar may have the biggest number of registrations compared to our previous webinars so far. As of yesterday, we have 47 who have signed up. Half of that number is from the Philippines. Thanks to our speaker, he helped MAI in promoting this webinar to thousands of his Facebook friends. But we are so glad that participants can join us from Africa, from North America, from Australia, and from other parts of Asia too. Welcome and thank you for being with us today. Just a few webinar tips, webcast tips to our attendees. Please interact by typing in your questions using the chat box on the left-hand side of the screen. We're happy to see you texting and communicating with one another already and using the chat box. Thank you for that, and use that as your question box as well. We have a Q&A portion towards the latter part of our broadcast, and we hope to answer all of your questions. Know that this webinar is being recorded. Feel free to view this webinar again, and also to share it to your friends later. We will send you the link to the recording later. Just an intro to the topic. Writing for the youth is such a challenge to writers and publishers around the world, because this is a market segment that's quite difficult to reach. They have a certain culture and language that one has to understand and connect with before you can even start engaging them in a meaningful conversation. Let me introduce our speaker this morning, today. Our speaker is Pastor Ronald Molmisa. He is the president and head pastor of Generation 316 Ministries in the Philippines. He has some 15 years of rich youth ministry experience. His books have sold thousands of copies, and the most popular of which is the Lovestruck series, a guide on relationships for young people in conversational Taglish. That's Tagalog in English. The yearly Lovestruck conference is attended by thousands of young people, drawing many to the Lord. Please welcome Pastor Ronald Molmisa. Take it away, Pastor.
Thank you, Sir Ramon. Thank you for a good introduction. Hello, friends. Good day, everyone. Wherever you are, now is 9:03 p.m. here in the Philippines. So wherever you are, I really appreciate for you registering in this webinar. And for this session, first I would like to introduce myself. Just like Sir Ramon already stated, I have been in the youth ministry for more than 15 years, so to be exact, 19 years. I'm currently the head pastor of Generation 316 Ministries. And in this discussion that I would do for tonight, here in our time zone, I would wear several hats. I would speak as a pastor. I would also speak as a researcher. At the same time, I would speak as a normal Homo sapiens sapiens, a normal human being that already experienced being a young man. And I will discuss later the following. So the first, I will discuss this question: why write for the young people? This may be commonsensical. This may be a simple question to answer, but let's go deeper into the more deep answers with regard to this question. The second would be, I would like to discuss the writing and adolescent development nexus, the connection between writing and understanding adolescent development. And the third section would focus on youth culture. You cannot separate writing for the young people and understanding where they are coming from. So it is important for us to understand youth culture. And then, to conclude, maybe we would have question and answer later. I would give my practical writing tips, how I accomplish my books, at the same time, how I do things with regard to publishing. So if you're ready, so let's start the discussion. So you can interact through the chat box, no, at the down left side of the screen. So let's have this. Why write for the young people? I've been writing books since 2010. I was given a break by OMF Literature Philippines to do a book on relationships. Just a brief idea why the Lovestruck books came about. I was searching for culturally relevant books with regard to teenage relationships during that time, and there would be scarce resources. I had a hard time finding resources. That's why the Lord impressed upon my heart to do a book and publish materials. I first started with a seminar. I call that the Lovestruck Seminar. So for those of you who know the term, to be lovestruck means to be starstruck or starry-eyed with regard to relationships. So that helped the young people identify with the issue. And eventually, I published the Lovestruck books. And I thank the Lord that it became a bestseller. The first book was entitled Lovestruck, Love Mo Siya, Sure Ka Ba? That's the Filipino term that means, do you love him or her? Are you sure? So, sure ka ba? So, why write for the young people? I have the following. Okay, writing is all about sharing. And many young people would like to have good stories they can identify with. Young people are basically readers and talkers. So when I say talkers, they would like to share their experiences, positive or negative, their angst, their failures at the same time, those things they really care about. So when you write for the young people, make sure that they can identify with what you are writing. And your work, and this is important, this is the missional aspect of writing for the young people, that you can influence them, their minds and values. We call this group the 1330 window. So if you know the 1040 window, that's a latitude, longitude, geographical window in the globe, unreached by the gospel. We also have this 1330 window, meaning those people who have 13 years old and then up to 30 years old, the so-called the younger generation. So you can influence the minds of these people when you write books for teenagers and adolescents. And eventually they would become young professionals. So if you have planted seeds in their minds, well, you can influence their lives. Another thing is this. When you talk of writing for the young people, I consider the age group, they are more receptive to ideas, especially with regard to the gospel of Christ. They are receptive mainly because this is the time that they would like to know more about the things that are happening to them. But this would be crucial mainly because if they cannot identify with what you are writing, and that's really the problem with some of the writers, they cannot and they would not read your work. So in the same manner, if you want to really mold their minds, this is the period that you really have to write things about the experiences. Because physiologically, according to neuroscience, their brains are still impressionable and what we call moldable. There is a part of their brain that has yet to be developed, and that would be what we call the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex would be basically controlling emotions and controlling behavior. So when you talk of moldability, we're dealing with a lot of things here. Their mindsets. I think it's Marx who said that if you can capture the minds of people, you can change their lives. Okay, and in the same manner, many young people are idealistic. So writers, if you want to project a world that is good, a world that is full of hope, you have an audience among the young people. And I would say that many of the young people are really into things that they would say they could change the world. So they have this idea that things can change for the better. So you can help them achieve that dream and be an agent of social change when you write for the young people. So basically, that I would like to discuss with regard to the rewarding work of writing for the young people. In the same manner, when you write for the young people, you don't only have to understand the purpose and the rationale, you also have to understand what's happening to them so that you would know what to write. Okay. Two things. If you know what's happening to them in different areas of their lives, you would know what to write and how to write things. So in this case, simply put, you have to put yourself in their shoes. So you find these shoes, diba? You find these shoes too small. Nonetheless, that's a metaphor when you write for the young people. Put yourself in their shoes. Maybe you could have this notion also that you have to be nostalgic about your adolescent years. So maybe you could also put yourself in your shoes during the time you're a young man or a young woman. I always tell this in my seminar, young people are not always wrong. They are only different. Many adults would fail to understand this because they would like young people to act the way they do. The problem with that mindset is this, that you cannot really expect them to act like adults, mainly because they still have to develop a lot of areas in their lives. So kindly bear with me, this may sound academic, but I find this necessary so that you can be guided on how to write for the young people. Okay, let's start with physical development. When you talk of physical development, puberty, pubertas, meaning to grow hairy, meaning there would be a lot of changes in the physical body of a young man or a woman, and this could affect his or her self-esteem. While some people would have problems with their pimples, acne, and yung, I would say awkward body growth. Well, I have known some youth that would have large limbs but short legs. So that would serve as a reason for them to have low self-esteem because they have been objects of ridicule. So you must also understand that. And it's not unusual that many young people would suffer from moodiness. Moodiness. So I would just have this, yeah, moodiness. And that would provide them a lot of emotions. In the morning, they would be sad. In the afternoon, they would be happy. And then revert back again to being sad. It's normal among adolescents. And also, this is the time that there would be instances that you cannot really prevent them from having teenage or romantic relationships. They're beginning to understand the development of their bodies. They explore. But the problem is this. There would be young people who would consider early, and late physical mature. So there would be pros and cons if you're an early maturer. Basically, if you grow fast, you would be considered for leadership position, but not all leaders, teenage leaders, would be having emotional maturity. Many cases I know, emotional maturity would always lag behind physical maturity. So not to belabor the discussion of this, I hope you understand that when you talk of adolescent development, there will be a lot of changes in the physical body. Hence, if you write books, you must also consider maybe an issue with regard to their physical changes. The next area would be cognitive development. The first thing that people should understand is this, that young people would now start to have an ability to think about abstract concepts. So when you talk of abstract concepts, they have this ability to somehow make images, and when you talk of abstract concepts, they can now understand metaphors. But also to its essence and purpose in their lives. I hope you understand the definition. And this is also the reason why many young people would always question a lot of lessons being taught to them. That means they start to process all information they are absorbing from their environment, and parents and adults should never be surprised, should never feel intimidated, because it is part of their growing up. So what would be the implication of this with regard to writing? The main implication is this, that you should challenge the minds of young people to think. So this time, you have to have this practice. You must teach them not only what to think, but also how to think. Challenge their minds. And there's this phenomenon, we call this in psychology pseudo-stupidity. It's also part of their cognitive development. By definition, this is the tendency of many young people to interpret and respond to situations in a much more complex manner than is, quote-unquote, warranted. So, simply put, in many cases, they over-analyze. So when their mother or father scolded them because of doing a bad action, they would overstretch their imagination, saying that their mother doesn't love them anymore, something like that. And it's also natural for them, since their brains are being forced to develop in many ways. They have this attitude, the trial and error personality development, meaning they would find a personality which can satisfy their emotional needs. One instance would be a person could assume a clown role, a funny personality, and if people would recognize that personality, they would embrace that personality. And if time comes that the funny personality would never be accepted any longer, they would find another personality to experiment on. They are finding themselves in many cases. So what's the implication of this in your writing? You must identify the issues surrounding this so that they can find themselves in your writing. Another area would be, as I said, emotional development. Wayne Rice, this is a veteran youth minister, who said, adolescents are emotional because they have acquired a new ability to think in a new way. They also have acquired the ability to feel in a new way. So what do you mean by this? So you must also recognize the emotional characteristics of young people. For example, their emotional roller coaster. As I said, many of them are moody. Well, part of this would be ascribed and attributed to the hormonal changes during puberty. Well, many adolescents really are not skilled in dealing with their emotional ups and downs. I hope you understand that's the reason also why they are so attached to romantic stories. That's why the juvenile generation would always have this love story. Well, during my time, I think it was the time that Keanu Reeves, I think it's a Walk in the Clouds, I think. I forgot the title. That's my juvenile movie because we can identify with the movie. That's in the 1990s. I don't know if some of you still know that movie. So that's basically the reason why you have to be, I would say, emotional also when you write for the young people. Okay? With regard to social development, these would be the characteristics. There would be an increase in the number of friends because they would like to expand their friendships. They would like to, in many instances, the role of peer or peer groups, their influence would be much stronger compared to them with regard to specifically in our country, Philippines, dysfunctional families pushes people and young people to somehow find solace and comfort among their friends. So I would say that many young people would need a lot of help in this area because if families, their parents, their churches and schools cannot have a positive influence on them, those who would be included in their group, the peers, would fill the gap. And you must also understand that during this time, the young people would have this desire to become independent. Okay? So, another thing is this. There would be a lot of conflict with regard to their parents. It's natural. It is normal. Mainly because their parents are now being exposed to the changes. So as a writer, what I do is this. I have two things in mind. I need to explain what the young people experience. I also would like to explain basically what the parents need to know. Many young people would really need help in these areas. Spiritual development, this would be the last dimension of their life. And as Christians, I hope we understand that many young people, in many cases, would start to question the faith of their childhood. It is normal because it is connected to their cognitive development. As I said earlier on, many of them would now find answers from different persons, from different personalities, and now they try to process everything they have listened to. It's normal. And many of them would be adventurous. You would notice this especially if they are so enticed, if they're gravitated towards occult and those who would offer supernatural experience. So as a writer, I always see to it that they listen to the gospel of Christ because I would consider the gospel of Christ as the best alternative to their spiritual longings. Also, you have to capitalize on this period because adolescence is a period of soul searching. I must emphasize this mainly because young people look for spiritual models. Okay? So I hope you have an idea who would be our target readers. Another thing that I want you to understand is this, that aside from understanding the transitions in different areas of their lives, we also have to engage the present culture they are in. Part of writing for the young people is understanding their world. So, as Christians, we know the Word of God. But as writers, we must also engage their world. One biblical text I find relevant to this discussion is Daniel chapter 1, verse 17. To these four young men, that would be Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. In Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. What we can glean and what we can see from this example is this: that Daniel and his friends not only upheld their spiritual convictions, but they also trained themselves to become wise about their culture. That's why they're effective in engaging even the king, because they knew what they were saying during their time of captivity. So, for those of you who have plans to write for the young people, it's important that you do not only know the Word of God. As for me, I'm an academic by discipline and practice. I always look for research materials who can complement the message of the Bible. Specifically, in my books, I always follow the research on young adult sexuality being conducted by University of the Philippines, DNM. And not only that, I read books, I read research materials. So how do we define youth culture? Well, the youth culture, Walt Mueller wrote this, that youth culture nowadays, still, the rate of change is speeding up. It's not slowing down. When you say it's speeding up, it is evolving too fast. What's fashionable now would never be fashionable 3 weeks from now. And also this, not only are there more voices taking up space in youth culture all the time, but they are also getting louder, more attractive, and more convincing. So what do we mean by this? When we talk of the youth culture getting louder, many personalities, many organizations would compete for the ears, the eyes, and maybe the whole personalities of young people. And what's the implication of this when you talk of church involvement? And that's the reason why many churches, who are what we call culture current, are now getting a bulk of population, young people population, because they are being marketed as youth friendly. Well, that's only a means for you to attract young people. And many have to find ways on how to be more convincing. Part of convincing young people is this: they look for authentic and real examples. So much for youth culture. I have this diagram. I have this diagram from Haddon Robinson, the biblical preaching author. I want you to take a look at this Venn diagram. When you write books or maybe illustrations, you have to understand the following. There would be two great circles. The first circle would be, I would say this would be the author, the A. And this would be the circle of the young people. So when you talk of the following, your writings would be more relevant and effective when you provide illustration and discussion points that would be based on your learned experience, lived experience, and the young people's lived experience and learned experience. The intersection of those would be this one. So this would be the somehow the hierarchy of effectiveness. One, this one, the best illustrations connect on the lived experience and learned experience of both the author and the young man or young people. The second best are when you learn experience, this one, intersects with their lived experience. The third most effective is when your lived experience, this one, overlaps their learned experience. Well, I hope you're getting the intersections. Uh, and then the fourth is when both of your learned experiences overlap. All right, that's number 4. And then the fifth, the worst, I would say, according to Robinson, is when the speakers lived or learned experience don't overlap. So these would be the sections. So in these cases, you can never be relevant effective because your words are really disaggregated and disconnected. So look for this intersection. So what would be the implication of this? You have to live and experience what they live. You have to learn what they learn. So some practical tips. Number 1, remember this, the ILWU principles. When you talk of immerse, one practical step when you write, you need to hang out with teenagers to understand them. Specifically, Christ, who became man, identified himself with human beings. So when you talk of immersion, you do not study the young people from afar, because studying them from afar will not provide you a comprehensive knowledge of their character and day-to-day experiences and issues. So another thing is youth ministry should be relational. We're still in this immerse section. When you immerse with the studies of young people or with youth studies, you need to be relational because you want to build relationships with them. They cannot open up their secrets to you with them. The second thing is this, you have to listen. Apostle James said you have to be slow to speak and quick to listen, right? So youth ministry requires a lot of listening. You cannot be a good youth minister if you don't have this skill. This is the rule. The rule is this. If you want students to pay attention to you, you must first listen to them. One way of doing this is this. You can have what we call FGD. FGD. I don't know if you know this acronym, meaning focus group discussions. It can be formal and it can be informal. A casual group chat will do. So if you want to be effective, listen to them and be acquainted, another thing, with their language and with their lingo. You say lingo terms that they would use. So immerse, listen, and then watch. Well, some people would have problems with this because not all, especially youth ministers, watch the movies they watch. But if you want really to address youth issues, we need to at least know the movies, the TV shows that they watch. I hope you understand that watching secular movies does not necessarily endorses them. We just have to have an idea about the message that they watch so that you can really engage them. For example, reading the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx would not really mean you subscribe to communist or socialist principles. Well, you can also find gems in different materials. And the last thing would be this. This is important. This is the baseline principle. You have to understand them. Understanding youth culture, I should say, is neither blind tolerance nor endorsement. As I said, adolescence is a period of transition. So, when you talk of period of transition, be careful, as I said, be careful in judging their personality. Some adults would be too hasty about generalizing the personalities and the behavior of young people. Look beyond the behavior. There would always be a reason why they behave the way they do. As I said, young people are not always wrong. They're only different. So, to engage the youth culture, understand these four principles that I've been practicing since I started my youth ministry. Okay? Another thing is this. Writing tips. This would be the last section perhaps, and then we can engage in question and answer. Okay. I divided my discussion on writing tips would be according to the writer, what would be the characteristics of a writer engaging the younger generation, and what would be the contents of the writings. Okay, let's start with the writer. Number one, this I would recommend, write because you have a purpose and a message. Okay? You do not write because you want to earn money, although that can be a good motivation. You write because you want to get across your message and you want to have a positive impact for the younger generation. You write because you love them. Maybe that I would summarize that in that statement. You write books because your love for the young people would take primacy. Okay? Write with a purpose. And of course, get across your message. When you talk writing, it's not really about monetary compensation. It's about your life mission to engage the younger generation. That's the first thing. The writer, ito na. Well, ito na, in Tagalog, this is it. Quantity produces quality. Many people would have a hard time, especially for non-English speaking writers. Many of them having hard time doing the correct grammar spelling, but it doesn't matter for me. If you're a novice writer, keep on writing, because if you keep on writing, the iron, as the Bible declares, would sharpen an iron. So that what would be the iron? The iron would be your friend who would comment on your work, or some people who would comment on your blog. Okay? Write regularly. As you do the habit, you would find yourself producing quality materials. I have known a lot of people who achieve quality writings, mainly because they have written a lot. Another thing is this, start small. Many young writers would always approach me. Sir Ronald, how do I publish my work? Many of them are really, I would say, impatient when you talk of publishing their work. But this I would recommend. You start small. You start your blog. It's important that you practice what you want to do in the future. So have a blog. Make a newsletter. Volunteer. If your church have publication materials, so volunteer to write for your church. And to be short about your writing habits, you can post an FB message or notes every day. As for me, I should say, on average, if I'm not busy, I'm always in front of my computer, I would post at least 20 statuses or FB messages for the entire day. So that would also serve as a way for you to gain following. Okay? And also, you must understand this principle. Writers are leaders. You cannot give what you don't have. I don't have to explain that. You have to read. Another thing is, you have to find your niche in the writing world. When you talk of finding your niche in the writing world, you have to find a place where people can identify you with a certain type of writing. It can also help you identify your writing calling. So if there will be people who would write on a certain topic, maybe the Lord is telling you to write on another topic. Okay? And the last thing I would give for the writer is this. More than the composition, the books you would write, your life is your message. Young people look for role models. Young people would like to see authentic people who would live their lives faithfully and honestly. Integrity in writing matters, especially when you're a Christian writer. You have to show Christ in everything that you do, and your life is your message. And the last section would be, how do you now write? So this is how I do things. Kindly bear with me. This will be 5 minutes or to 10 minutes. Number one, well, I always pray for great inspiration for a topic that is worthwhile to be written. And of course, I pray for passion. Passion is my gasoline, my oil, so that I can start whatever I started. I pray, Lord, give me the topic I would like to write on, and give me the strength so that I can finish this project. That's the first thing I do whenever I write books. I sometimes have fasting season. I fast for what I write. It's up to you what God tells you or continue. So another thing, I already told this in the previous slides, you have to know your readers. So basically, when you talk of readership, well, we already know the characteristics of young people because your readership will determine your subject. A subject they can identify with, and you have to know your language. Their language, you have to identify that. Your diction, well, not too deep, not too shallow for them, and the depth of your argumentation. Young people would never want to read an academic book that easily. When you say academic book, your discussion should be light if you're targeting a segment of society who are not really into academic arguments. That's why theology books would never be appealing to young people in many ways. Okay? Know your readers. And then this one, you must always have the Word of God. If you're a Christian writer. Now I would tell you this as a Christian writer. The Word of God engaging their word. One author of OMF Philippines once wrote this from Pastor Willie Garau. To know the world but remain ignorant of God's word is to have no message. To know God's word but to be ignorant of our world is to be what? Irrelevant. Okay? So that's one thing. Be organized also. So when you write, you have to organize your thoughts, your schedule. I have my filing and note-taking system. Whenever I read internet articles, it's an automatic response, a knee-jerk response. I bookmark that section or save it in my computer. And your workstation also matters. You have to be comfortable when you write. Proper lighting, proper ventilation is important. So again, be organized. Okay? It would help you a lot. And also, I always see to it that my work would be substantial. When you think of substantial aspect, since I'm a researcher, I cannot settle anything for less. I gather and analyze data. For instance, my next book, Lovestruck Edition, I'm currently processing information from at least 90 married couples I interviewed because I want my book to be grounded on empirical data. Okay? You have to be substantial because many works would only depend on reflections and opinion. I don't see any problem with regard to that. But if you want to provide value added information, you have to be substantial. And then, this one, write to express. Always have fun. There's a rule among OMF Philippines authors that whatever you feel, whatever you want to say to the readers, just have fun, maybe, of course, without defying proper grammar rules. But as a rule, whenever a reader would read your book as if you're only talking to them. So that's how natural writing should be. Okay? And that's why writing voice matters. When you talk of writing voice, your writing voice is your personality. Again, I would like to repeat that. Your writing voice is your personality. How would you like to be projected in your writing? And then, write your first draft leisurely. What I do is this. I don't edit myself with regard to this phase of writing because I just like to let it flow. The system is let it flow. I would like to just pour out all the things that God is telling me during that time or this time. Then go back after several weeks or days, and then that's the time that you edit your work. That's why you let it simmer. Take a break once in a while, have a mind rest, and maybe God is ready to give you another batch of ideas. And then I would like to tell you this, that you have to write from your heart. Popular author Jerry Jenkins wrote, I really like this. If there are no tears in the writer, there will be no tears in the reader. The emotion conjured in you as you write will be multiplied in the reader. And that's really true. If you cannot feel what you write, don't expect people would feel what you projected in your writings. Okay? And then the last phase, the technical aspect, edit and proofread, of course. And maybe your editor would help you in this area. Edit and proofread. And the last two slides I would give you, after all of this had been done, pray for your next book project. And always remember this. Write for the next generation. When you say write for the next generation, I hope your writings would be timeless and would not only be relevant to your generation, but also for the next generation for the glory of Christ. Maraming salamat mga kapatid. Thank you for listening. Sermon, I'm done.
Yes, yes, I can only say, wow. And you have really shared so much insight, so much content, practical ideas. It's just very encouraging. James Tinsai said, clap, clap, clap. So thank you so much, Pastor Ronald. Yes.
So we have questions.
Actually, there's yes, James Tinsai.
Can we activate the microphone?
With regards to no, it will slow down the internet connection if we activate the microphone.
Okay.
So it's good that they can type in their comments and questions. With regards to immerse, listen, watch, and understand. You said you can watch movies that they're watching. What about
when you talk of watching movies, you know what to watch really. But that's really not a sign of maturity. That's a sign of irresponsibility. Well, we know what the material is. It's soft porn. So I hope you do not misunderstand the aspect of watching. Well, when I say watch, maybe you can just read articles, but not really watch. Just to give you ideas about the content of the movie or the material.
Yes. Thank you for that response. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
Other questions, please, from the audience? Can you type in your questions aside from what James inside? What about a focus group discussion? The D's discussion and
what's the question?
Discussion, yes. She's asking about
so when you talk of focus discussion, well, this is the term we use in the academe with regard to a topic to be discussed, and you want inputs and you want opinions of the group. It's called focus group because you only focus on one topic and you find different positions, opinions on the topic. You now give flesh to different areas of the issue. At the same time, you get a lot of perspectives. So you do this formally. You say formally, you can arrange really. You have a schedule. You invite guests, selected guests. So when you talk of focus group discussion, this is not a big group. So honestly, it would be on average at most 10 people. So just to give you ideas on a certain issue, that's the formal organizing of focus group. But when you talk of informal, well, a casual chat would do in a cafeteria or a mall. So that's what I mean by focus group discussion.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Other questions, please?
Yeah.
You really have covered a lot of ground, Ronald, Pastor Ronald.
Yeah.
I
Well, that's really a book.
yeah.
Because I honestly, I'm doing a book on youth ministry. I'm planning to do a book on different areas of youth ministry, and this is just so I included here some of the sections in the book I'm writing on.
Wow. So we got a glimpse of a portion of the book that you're writing, and this is really
Yeah.
we're very blessed to. I've learned a lot myself, Pastor Ronald.
Yeah. So it's my pleasure to share with you what God has given me and what God has blessed me through the years.
Yeah. So I think we still have more time for questions. Susan is typing something. Go ahead,
Still have
Susan.
10 minutes.
Yeah. You might have a question.
So our friends sa Philippines, tanong naman kayo.
Susan
Questions
said,
from our Philippine buddies. Yeah.
Susan is from South Africa. We are
Hello,
writing a
Susan.
book for youth. We are writing a book for youth pastors. Anything
Pastors.
you think should be included? Youth pastors, a book for youth pastors, for youth
Okay.
ministers.
Hello. Okay. Yeah. Well, the first recommendation I would give would be, of course, for youth pastors, you can first have an introductory chapter on the biblical foundations of youth ministry, and you can also include youth ministry pastor and head pastor or senior pastor relations, youth ministry and parents, youth ministry and in different areas of youth ministry. It can be prayer, worship time, fellowship, and maybe you can touch on social engagement, how the youth ministry would engage society in their communities. It's important because we always want to go. Evangelism is not only of preaching the gospel, it's also showing the gospel. Okay? So that would be some ideas I could consider that I think you should consider in your book.
Mm-hmm. That's very helpful. In fact, you have a lot of material here in your presentation, Pastor Ronald, that maybe Susan can go back to, and you can choose which topics you might want to include in your book for youth pastors.
Yeah. Yeah. If there would be concerns, you can email me or you can PM me. I have my Facebook page, Ronald Molmisa, and email as here, rcmolmisa@gmail.com. So they can contact me through that email. I'm more than willing to share with you and let's at gmail.com. Let's exchange notes. I want also to know the experiences of our South African or American or European youth pastors. That would be good.
That's great. Yes. We also have participants from Africa. Can we have any question from Africa? Anyone who might have any other question for Pastor Ronald?
They said that the listeners are silent it would be only two things. Number one, they fully understood the lecture. Number two, they really fully understood the lecture. I think you have to ask me questions. I need also to learn from you. Or maybe they have something to share to
Uh-huh.
complement the discussion.
Yeah.
James Insai, his friend said it's okay to watch porn for academic purposes. Wow. Well, I'm not really agreeable with this position. Mainly because when you talk of pornography, it can really awaken what the legalists would say prurient desires, the sensual desires. I don't really recommend that.
Mhm.
Okay, James Ivan, Pastor James, this is my friend. Isn't really necessary for a writer for young people to say current? Well, when you talk of current, let's define that current. When you talk of current, it doesn't mean that you have to go with the secular flow. You just consider current information and trends to be a backgrounder to inform you, not to really endorse it or not really to approve it. That's what I mean by current. To be
Mhm.
knowledgeable about the current youth culture.
Yes. Okay. Okay, I
Okay, more
think
questions?
Bernice is typing a
Typing.
question, I think.
Hello, Miss Bernice.
Yeah, Bernice is the
How many
MAI
how
Asia
many minutes do you
chair.
have? Uh,
Uh,
how many
3
minutes do we still have?
minutes. Bernice said, if you're not current, you're irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you define really current. So when you say current, well, as I said, because different churches and ministries have different ways of using the term current. But as I use current in this presentation, you have to be informed about the current culture. But again, not necessarily endorsing that culture, which goes against biblical principles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're in the world, but not of the world.
Yes, precisely.
Yes. Yes. So Anne is typing maybe a question or a comment. We maybe have two or three last comments, please, because we're almost run out of time.
There's this question from James because this is popular among Filipino young people. The word is be, PH. Well, there's a comedian who popularized this. Well, it's considered a gay lingo, maybe, but I should say that sometimes many people don't really know the etymology and origin of the term. They mean a different thing whenever they use words. My position with regard to this is it depends on the usage and how the person using it. Well, as I said, in principle, God looks at the heart, not really in how we use words. But there would be words. Okay, don't get me wrong on this. There would be words that in different cultures and in different contexts would really be affront, offensive. So that's really my position.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It, it
James Ivan
well, what I
has a
do,
question.
yeah.
How about adapting to the
Well,
language of the young generation? Would it make our writing palatable to them?
well, it is not that you know their language. Uh, when you talk of writing, especially for OMF, I'm speaking as an author of OMF. There would still be gatekeeping with regard to the words that I introduce.
Yes.
Nonetheless, I am in the opinion, I am with the opinion that you can use neutral terms that are not really offensive, and you think can make young people identify with what you are saying. There's this case, there's this TV program in the Philippines. who would use the term bro, B-R-O, bro as in brother, to refer to Jesus. Well, some churches found that offensive because when you talk of Jesus, as if you are irreverent when you use the term bro. But I would consider that really as a good tool. It it really had the following mainly because people started to appreciate Jesus in many ways. So my position is it depends on how you would use the term.
Mhm. Daunting is asking, what about using popular culture for sermon series and ultimately
Well,
blogs?
I still have to know what he means by popular culture because it's so broad. But when you talk of maybe illustrations, well, some people would have common experiences. I think you have to start with that, the common experiences. Just like Jesus presented in his parables, he would use objects with regard to the agricultural sector, the parable of the sower, parable of the vineyard, because people have these common experiences. You do not use popular culture illustrations for the sake of just having one. So you must know first your audience. You must first know your readers.
Okay. I think we have run out of time.
It's already 10
We
auto.
just want on behalf of all the participants that have logged in and on behalf of
Yeah.
MAI, we really would like to thank you, Pastor Ronald. You are a
Yeah. Thank you.
blessing.
It's my
We thank
pleasure.
God for you. May the Lord bless you and use you in your ministry, in engaging and reaching out to young people and writing for them. May you write more books and may more
Yeah.
and more young people get to read your books. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Maraming salamat. Our friends in different parts of the globe. Thank you very much.
Yes. Just for a quick introduction to maybe some of you who don't know MAI yet, Media Associates International is passionate about developing and nurturing local authors like Pastor Ronald, who can reach out to their own people with content written in their own language and in their local context. We have a network of volunteer trainers in all continents of the world. They so generously donate their time and expertise to help train and encourage homegrown writers, editors, and publishers, especially in the world's underserved areas. Please visit our website, www.litworld.org, for more information about our organization, how to pray for us, sign in to get our newsletter, our blogs. We would like to engage you and we would like to partner with you in reaching out to more and more people around the world through homegrown literature, Christian literature. May I invite you to our next two free webinars. On May 22nd, we will have time management, life balance, and avoiding burnout with Pastor Su In Tan from Singapore, the beloved husband of Bernice. Please register and join us on April 22nd for this important topic, time management, life balance, and avoiding burnout. And then on May 12, you're also invited to join us on the topic, building your team towards achieving results with Larry Downs. So go to our website, litworld.org, and register to attend those two free webinars, upcoming webinars. And then our big event this year is Lit World 2015. Lit World is unique. It's a unique international Christian publishing conference. Join more than 200 professionals from Asia, from Africa, from Europe, North and Latin America, and the Middle East. All Christian writers, editors, graphic designers, publishers, and booksellers are welcome. Join us in Singapore, November 1 to 6. gain intensive training on strategic publishing related topics. And our theme is reaching your reader. It's a key challenge for global Christian publishers and writers. And it is the theme of Lit World 2015. And Bernice is the host, the chair of the host committee. And we are also excited and looking forward to Lit World in Singapore. And as a FYI, Pastor Ronald Molmisa will speak in one plenary session. So if you could join us, please join us in Singapore, November 1 to 6. Go visit our website for more details about Lit World. So thank you so much for being with us. It's such a lively webinar, a lively discussion. We've learned a lot. We would like to thank God for Pastor Ronald, and he has so graciously
Maraming salamat.
given his time and effort to be with us and to share very good insights. So thank you.
Yeah.
See you again next time.
Yeah. Maraming salamat.
Yes, we have recorded.